So what we want to talk about, Josh, and I know you have a bunch of things you want to talk about on these tools and strategies to win a deal. So Josh, why don't you take it from here, talk a bit about your company, talk about these things that you want to talk about, and then later on, send it back over because I want to talk about some things from a lending side that we can do as lenders to help you get your deal accepted, okay?
Yeah. It really is in this market. That's why I wanted to put on the class together, is because it's a team effort completely, 100 steps of the way, 100% of the way. Having a great lender will make or break you in this market, obviously. From your time of closing to making sure there aren't any delays, to putting the best foot forward, understanding that they need to be available. Time is of the essence. So, my side of this incorporated with Keith is just, I created a 15-step plan to make sure you can hopefully, no guarantees, get your first offer accepted. Can I just ask, how many of us here are realtors?
Yeah. I can't see hands or several.
I am.
All right. Perfect. Okay, it's the majority. Wonderful. Okay, so you understand. So let's start off with number one. All right, be ready, willing, and able. All right, in this market, being ready, willing, and able, I mean, hitting all three of those. Okay. How many of you have experienced a hesitant buyer in this market? And unfortunately, because of that hesitation, you also might learn some lessons the hard way. It might take 48 hours to submit an offer. They might say, well, can we have 2 or 3 days to think about it? It's all those things, right? So having that ready, willing, and able conversation and just laying that foundation right off the bat. And it's up to you if you want to take them on or not after that fact, right? If they really aren't that motivated, and if we don't mind either chat, or if you don't mind turning on screens or something like that, just let me know your feedback, because would you show somebody who wasn't uber motivated in this market, truly speaking? Right? Yeah, it's tough because they have to be willing to go for it, right? So that's number one. And there's so many reasons to be motivated, which kind of leads us to number three, you'll see. Okay, so number one, have that ready, willing, and able conversation. Thoughts, feedback on that? And as Keith said, this is a very good conversation-y type class. Since we're actually mostly realtors, we can strategize. If I miss anything, let me know. So, okay. All right, let's get to number two. Getting your ducks in a row. And Keith, this is where please fill us in, because you're more important than us at this point, right? We shouldn't take anybody out if they can't submit an offer same day, flat out. And that means they need either a proof of funds or a pre-qual. And fill me in again, what is the pre-qual and your fill us in with
pre-approval. Yeah, so I got to tell you, as a loan officer, one of the most frustrating things in the world is one of your referral partners, agent, calls you up on Friday at 6 o'clock, or maybe even got to put an offer in ASAP. In this market, that boat already sailed. Probably not going to get it done in time. Because depending on the borrower, it may take a while to get a pre-qual, especially if they're self-employed. COVID has much greater restrictions on self-employed people right now. So it's really, I understand the concern that some agents have about pushing the pre-qual on the borrower to get it done ahead of time. You want to make sure they establish, and correct me if I'm wrong, you want to establish a rapport. You want to make sure that that client's not going to go anywhere, and you tell them, hey, you really need to get this pre-qual done. It's critical in this market. You all know that. So you got to kind of bite that bullet, and you can do it in a very non-threatening way. What Josh was alluding to, there's a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. We almost all do pre-quals. Some of us do a better job than others. An example is, I run Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's desktop underwriter or loan I keep forgetting, loan prospector for Freddie Mac. FHA, we use Fannie Mae's DU, desktop underwriter. And I actually run those programs. And those are the same programs that the underwriter runs. So I can tell whether I'm going to have an approval based on my due diligence, make sure I have all the documentation. In fact, that program tells you what documentation you need. And we pretty much underwrite to that program. We don't have a bunch of overlays at all. But there's also what's called a pre-approval. And my group that underwrites my files is now putting pre-approvals in, if you want, behind obviously purchases and refis. So if you have a client who's really serious about looking, and they want to take the time to get a pre-approval, I can actually put in a loan. I get all the documentation. I'm doing it just like an actual loan. It goes into the system and gets underwritten without an address. That's a pre-approval. Going in with a contract saying, my borrower is pre-approved, not pre-qualified, but this file has been reviewed and approved by an underwriter is huge if you're competing against others who don't have that. So, to Josh's point, it's critically important in this market if you're not paying cash. Josh, you're muted, bud. We all do it.
And to the best of your knowledge, nobody really knows about that. So that would be something that when we send that email or have a blatant communication with that other agent to literally spell out the differences, right? To be able to give that edge. Because not many people, I think, know truly what that means. It's already pre-underwritten. We're good, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Right. And which means all the documentation is been reviewed. The only thing we're waiting on is an address, right? And a loan amount, but they're pre-approved up at whatever loan amount we do it for.
Perfect. So
I want to mention, well, I will talk about later things I can do to help a deal. It's okay.
no, put it in order. Absolutely.
Well, I get calls sometimes from listing agents. And I don't know, you might have all done it if you've listed properties and sold them. You'll call the lender and try to get a feel from the lender what kind of comfort level you have that they've really done the pre-qualification, right? We have all these little boxes we check, tax returns and all these things. Did they really look at them? Did they really get them?
Yeah.
You have to trust that the loan officer is honest. He isn't marking that off if he hasn't looked at those documents.
Yeah.
I put an A or I put no. If I haven't looked at it, if I check yes, I have it. If I have a pre-qual for someone who's self-employed, I'm not doing it without tax returns, period. Can't. I mean, if you look at the pre-qual form, it says you have to do an application, pull credit, and have a discussion of income and asset. I've never talked to someone who's self-employed who knew how much money they made. Well, they'll tell me how much they make, but they really don't know how much we calculate they made. Some say they made $100,000. They're thinking gross receipts. Well, that's not what you really made. You made $30,000 because you wrote off $70,000.
Yeah.
So, as a loan officer, I actually want to talk to the listing agent. I always volunteer. Hey, if you want me to, I'll give the listing agent a call, be proactive, and tell them about the client, the due diligence I did on the pre-qual, without going over specifics. Excellent credit, low DTIs are low. I'm not going to give specific numbers, but I can tell the agent information makes it very comfortable that this loan will close.
That's awesome. That's perfect. And this, you start from the immediate moment. We'll get a little ahead of ourselves here, but starting to schmooze and putting your best foot forward immediately. And it's like, if you call that person saying, hey, I got a client that loves your house, and you're still on site, obviously, the moment they say they're interested, it's like, hey, we got an offer coming your way. By the way, their lender's going to call you and just talk about how awesome they are and how fast you can close, man. We're on our way. It's laying that foundation from the very beginning and having that partnership with a wonderful lender who might happen to be available via cell phone on nights and weekends. Not that he wants to always be, but he is.
I get agents on those deals that'll call me on a weekend, and I'll pick up the phone, right? Or if I don't, because sometimes I get sales calls, and if they leave a message, I'm right back to them. I mean, so Josh is right. I don't turn my phone off. I do sometimes, wonder if it's a sales call. So, but I do call back if they leave a message. Absolutely.
Perfect. So the last part about getting your ducks in a row, and this is the funnest part in today's market, guys, right? Listing a home. If they need to sell their home, when to do it, how to do it, convincing them to do it, that whole fun shebang. Now, if we really boil it down, for them to buy a home today, right? If a seller's going to take their offer even remotely seriously, how far through the listing process, or let's rather say sales process, should that listing really be? Anybody?
I know.
That's the tough one. Nobody wants to list because they're afraid of, where will I move? But then without them listing, there is nowhere to move because there's no listings. But at the same time, they have to list their home in order to buy their new home. In most cases, obviously, if they could qualify for both homes, wonderful. But it's getting tougher and tougher because home values are getting more and more expensive. So therefore, people are needing more and more income. So it's not always guaranteed they can afford both homes. That would be wonderful. But in that case, it's convincing them of the benefit of listing their home yesterday. And Keith, go through kind of like, just that little spiel about qualifying for two homes, first one, really fast. Like, what are you?
Well, I'll give you an example right now. I have a repeat client of mine who contacted me about a month or so ago. Hey, Keith, we're looking to sell our house, move to a bigger house. I want to make sure I can qualify for $600,000 purchase price. So it was really easy to qualify once his house was sold. Well, he just contacted me just a few days ago. What's today, Thursday? It was actually Monday. He contacted me on Sunday. Oh, and I picked up the phone. And he wanted to know if he could qualify for this existing home. So let me look at the numbers. So here's what I ended up telling him. So I asked him, did he have a 401k? Right, we talked about that before. I looked up, kind of got an estimate of what his value was on his house. I knew what he owed on his loan. And here's what I packaged for him on how he could qualify with his existing home. Might be line of credit for the maximum amount you can. He already actually had a 401k loan against his 401k, so he has to pay that off to borrow another again. It's a small one. So I said, take that cash, pay out the 401k loan. I said, but wait until we're under contract on new house. Pay out the 401k loan. Now you can borrow $50,000 on that because you verified it, right? We don't have to count that payment against you because it's 401k. The credit line, we're going to just use the interest-only payment. And based on doing all that, he could do 20% down, qualify for a $600,000 mortgage, not have to worry about MI, doing all that stuff, and get qualified. So that's a way, if you look at all, again, it goes back to what I said before. I have to know the picture that's painted there, right? And if I don't have all the colors, I can't do the full picture. If I don't have the full picture, I can't give advice on how good it looks, right? I got a girlfriend who's an artist. I guess I just did an art kind of analogy. I don't know why, but that's what I did. But anyway, guys, so people may not think they can qualify with their existing home. Sometimes they can if you use a little bit of, I hate to use that term creative. That kind of has a bad connotation. In my world, I think it does. But if a loan officer really knows the tools they can use, you can sometimes do things that someone didn't think they can do. And I'll give you another quick example of that. This individual wanted to buy a house with his existing home. His loan officer he's used in the past told him he couldn't qualify because of COVID restrictions on self-employed. His income had been going down. So he calls me up. I know him through a coffee connection group at Tempe Chamber. And I looked at the numbers and stuff, and I said, I'll look at it, but let me see what happens. I called him up and said, well, based on what they told you, I have to agree. I can't qualify based on your income. However, he's in his 60s. And I said, you have a retirement account. Well, he has a substantial amount in a retirement account. So what did we do? I said, dude, set up an automatic withdrawal monthly. I need you to draw X amount per month and I can qualify.
That's awesome.
You only need to have one payment and we did it, and we closed his loan last week.
Very cool.
So again, knowing the situation and what options you can use, I was able to get him a loan when somebody else told me couldn't. So again, that could also be a strategy for someone who may want to qualify without selling the current home, a way to get them more income. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to then qualifying for that home first, that's perfect, right? Or being able to qualify for both homes, that's wonderful. On the vice versa of that, none of us want to take people out that think they can and can't. And then you find the perfect home, and then you find out that they need to sell their home to be able to qualify for it. So being able to convince people to do what it takes, given they're scared of an inventory conflict or anything like that, is tough. So that leads us to number 3, which is building confidence in the market. Okay, now this is going to be up for debate, and I don't have my crystal ball in front of me that is accurate, I could say. So we all have to kind of guess. But statistics show, does anybody know what the number today was? I actually didn't see the actives in the MLS. Last week when we looked, it was right around 4650, 4700 last week. We've been selling 10,000 homes a month. Our stat, we're kind of incrementally coming up a little bit, but oftentimes, this is also summer. Nobody wants to move during the summertime. We always slow down a little bit. So if we kind of just law through it to get to the end based on the sales and our inventory, the likelihood of Maricopa County not selling any homes for any period is impossible. I doubt the governor can say nobody can buy a home moving forward until we get to 30,000 homes. So that being said, if you just run the numbers, approximately 18 months. That's what a lot of the numbers are dictating. That's what my numbers dictate if you have a lot of discussion. So that takes us basically through the end of next year, right? And if that's the case, should people have confidence in the market that even worst case scenario, let's say that does happen, nobody can buy a home, okay? How long will it take us to get to 30,000 active homes? No less than 3 months, right? If we add approximately 9 to 10,000 homes to our market per month, that's that. So 30,000 takes us to 3 months. So worst case scenario, you always have at this point at least 3 months. 3 months to 18 months. That's what everybody is saying. Okay, and you can look at the stat newsletter, you can talk to pretty much pull up any news thing. They're talking about record setting this, record setting that, record setting this. Okay, so if we know no matter what, it's going to be great through next year, should they benefit by purchasing their home today? Okay, should they benefit by not paying, what is it, 10% more next month? Right? So if they're good for 18 months, we convince them of that. And then we say, oh, great. Well, it's going up by this amount, this amount, this amount, this amount, this amount. So you better buy your home now and reap the benefit of all that appreciation. For people moving up in the world, what's the benefit of moving up right now? Well, let's say it goes up by 10%. Okay, you're in a $200,000 home now. You want to buy a $350,000 home. 10% of 350 is a lot more than 10% of 200,000. So you're gonna make more if you're gonna move up. If you own your own home and you actually want to move down, sell it today, buy it today, cash, because you're gonna save that much money for 18 months, right? If you have a fixed amount, buy it today, right? There's a lot of reasons why people should buy it today, okay? And benefit. Why is this meeting ending again? Okay, guys, I don't know what's going on. Something's going on with my side of the Zoom. Did you guys see that too?
Yeah, it says 9:49.
I don't know what's going on because we have a paid for membership for Zoom. This has never happened before. I'm so sorry, guys. If we get
extend it, Josh, while you're there.
I'm trying to. I don't know what's going on. It's just, I don't know if he managed to, like, if we accidentally booked this without the full member. I don't know. This is just weird. Okay. Well, if we do get disconnected, I really appreciate everybody logging on one more time. This is silly. I can't explain this. This will never happen again. I apologize. Okay. So having confidence in today's market, where it's going to go, and what it really boils down to is having that urgency today. Okay, there's no magic bullet for any one client, but it's knowing the whole market and how it's going to benefit them to do it today. Okay, so does that kind of blanket answer confidence in the market? We have to instill confidence in the market for our clients to be able to make that leap. You know, if they're worried that they're not going to find the perfect home, well, why should they list? Because number one, we need the inventory. If everybody starts thinking about that inventory, our natural inventory will rise because they're no longer scared. If everybody kind of takes on that same mentality, it's a beneficial thing for everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of went around a little bit.
And you know, the stuff Josh is talking about too, I actually have a software tool. I have several of them. But one, they have a lot of calculators on the site that deal with the stuff we're talking about, right? People reluctant to buy in this market, maybe reluctant to go over asking price. And there's some crazy numbers over asking price. But I want to just show a couple of quick slides, Josh, if you could give that back to me.
Oh, yeah. Let's see here. There you go, sir.
Got it? Okay. Let me just show you a couple of things here. There it is. Can you see that?
Yep.
Screen? Oops. You see bid over asking price right now?
Yes, sir.
You do, right? Okay. So this is, I'm just going to go through some real quick slides, just so you can see what some of the things that us loan officers have. If the other loan officers obviously can have the same program. It's not particular to my company, but this is a bid over asking price. So we can actually use this tool. Let me move this over here so I'm not looking off to the left all the time. We can actually use this tool to show somebody, you may put in an offer over asking price, but based on current appreciation levels and the cost of that home, here's how much appreciation you're going to gain over a period of time. In this case, you're going to break even in 11 months, and in 5 years, this scenario I did, you can see the numbers up there, you're going to gain $132,000 almost. Okay, that's one tool. Here's another one. Appreciation after 5 years, right? Another example of, she's taking pictures, another example of what some of the things that we can show people that kind of puts the numbers in front of them, right? It takes away that fear away. And then the third thing is a cost of waiting, which is again, kind of what Josh is talking about. It's another tool where you can show waiting 6 months, waiting a year, waiting 2 years, and waiting 3 years based on, of course, assumptions of appreciation, which we can vary based on what we think interest rates are going to do. You know, we've been saying for a long time, interest rates are going to go up. They really are going to go up eventually, which is a little more fear now because of inflation and stuff, but we'll see. But anyways, these are some of the things that I wanted to show you. I think that's and this is the second part of that cost of waiting thing. And it shows the appreciation lost and stuff. Great tools and great visuals for a client to see. And that was kind of the things I wanted to share.
That's awesome.
Talk about the client's fear in this market of the pricing and stuff. Okay.
Yep. And also too, to tell Lori's.
I'm going to give this back to you, Josh.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Oh, that was awesome. And to tell Lori's husband, Tony, Security has the best app. If you don't have the Security Agent app, in my opinion, it's the best. It has so many marketing tools and ridiculousness involved. It's amazing. And it could, like, while you're out quickly, ding, 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 you can pull stuff up and handle it. They do have like a premium membership. I think it's like $12 or something like that. I think it's worth it. If you like it, wonderful. Let me know. If not, I'm sorry. So the big thing with this is to culminate with confidence in the market. Let's say that 18 months is true, okay? You want to build a cushion. You want to have an appreciation workup before the market falls. It's going to fall eventually, okay? And if you buy close to the end, you have nowhere to go but down. Right now, if you purchase it today, theoretically speaking, today, And we have 18 months and it goes up 5% this month, 10% next month, 6% the following month, this, that. You have 18 months of, yay, if it falls, we're going to be okay, because it's going to. And that's where we need to get people in that realm of safety, right? Do it today. Get that safety. It's bound to happen. You know what I mean?
It says we only have 3 minutes left in the remaining meeting. It's going to conk out again.
Yeah, Parker's upgrading that. I guess his particular membership is not a premium one in our office, so he's upgrading right now on his end. So
just wanted you to know.
there we go.
Oh, it's not unlimited minutes. See that?
We're good. All right. Good job, Parker. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Parker.
Gotcha.
Perfect time.
All right. So next, number 4. So let's finally, you guys found the home. You have a pre-qualified client, pre-approved client rather, and they finally found their home. All right. Now, are you guys calling, ladies? Sorry, are you guys, ladies? Such a habit. Calling the agents. And from the very moment, you're just saying, hey, I have wonderful clients. You know, we understand the market. We'll be easy to work with. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Are you actually just dropping stuff up front to let them know, right, that their life's going to be easy, and making yourself memorable? When they get 20 clients or 20 offers, it's all about being memorable, you know. But hopefully, if you're a buyer's agent, in the most affordable, risk-free ways possible, right? And so have a great conversation. You know, be nice. I mean, put that smile on your face, you know, like sit up straight. Hey, this is so-and-so. I got some awesome clients. You know, they put out 3 offers and they're ready to go, man. I'll get back to you soon. Thank you so much. You know, being great right off the bat. So be memorable, be pleasant, and communication, right? From the very moment you guys find it, you have to just start schmoozing. But what's the other benefit of kind of being nice and easy to work with and schmoozing? Hopefully we can fish for info, right? If they think you're a great client and you're going to be easy to work with, it's like, hey man, how many offers? What can you tell me? You know, my clients, they're great. You know, they want this home. We're going to be amazing. What do we need to do to get this home? You know, if they're a great listing agent, they're going to hold it tight to the vest. They should, but oftentimes if you get in, it's those little details that make all the difference. So number 4, schmooze from the very beginning. All right. Any questions, thoughts on that one? Pretty straightforward. Cool. All right. So from the number 5, all right, you can't wait, right? Speed to everything. And this is where, again, Keith comes in handy. Somebody like Keith, in whoever's case, the moment they like the home, are you calling and letting that agent know that you have an offer coming? Don't email, you can text, but there's no guarantee they're going to get that text, right? So from the moment they like that home, and let's say you still have 3 more homes to look at, doesn't matter. They might put an offer in on that one. Let that agent know. Let him know, hey, we're here on site. My clients are loving this home. We're probably going to get an offer coming your way. You know, is there anything we need to know? You'll have it tonight, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? So from the moment you like it, let them know. And that'll be your second contact. Okay, so you're already heads and tails above so many other agents that used showing time, didn't bother to find out anything about the offers. I'm sure you all have experienced it. More and more people are not actually laying any foundation before showing homes. They're bad, you know, so get in contact with that listing agent. Make sense? Okay, so number 5, communication. Get all the details. Try to be there. All right, so this is the next part, and Keith, we're gonna get to some of the fun stuff now. They love the home. You got to run comps. Ouch. What do you do today? Listing price means nothing. Listing price means nothing. You know what I mean? So on comps, where to be? And this is where Keith, what are you seeing as far as appraisals? Like let's say over your last month, more of them appraised than not, vice versa? What are you seeing?
I've actually seen most of them come in at least at purchase price. I've had a couple that didn't, but I'm surprised at how many have. And I think, it's interesting. I don't know how many agents on this meeting today were agents back in 2004, 5, and 6. In those days, appraisals were much different, right? We could call the appraiser. We knew who was doing it. There was a lot of bad behavior. Basically, there were loan officers who threaten the appraisers. If you don't get value, I'll never use you again, kind of a thing. Honestly, I never did that. My comment to an appraiser, and it's really kind of my value system, was always just this. Give me a number you can defend. As long as you can defend that number, I'm okay with that. It is what it is, okay? And it's kind of what you really need to have in the market. It's easy to look at the appraisers and get down on them while they're not doing their job. And there are some who don't necessarily do a really good job. But in my experience, most of them are trying to do the right thing and really come up with a value they feel is fair and they can justify.
Yeah.
This market, you're starting to see a little bit time adjustments now. That happened a lot back in 05, 04, 5, and 6. We're starting to see them again. A comp was 4 or 5 months ago. They're going to add a time adjustment to it because values are going up so much. But I will tell you this, they don't have to. It really comes down to the property and what are things relative to the comps he has. One thing I want to talk about on appraisals. Now, this doesn't apply to someone buying if you're a buying agent, but if you're a selling agent, my personal opinion, the listing agent should always meet the appraiser at the property. You should have comps for that appraisal. Ones that you think are fair, good comps. Don't give them a bunch of BS. Make sure you feel they're good comps. Most likely he has them, but you never know. And if you approach the appraiser from the standpoint, hey, I'm just here to help. You're not pushy or anything. Try strike up. Kind of goes back to what Josh was saying before about establishing a relationship or some kind of rapport with a listing agent when you're the buyer's agent. It's no different with an appraiser. And if you know the area, and don't ever, by the way, ask the appraiser if they're from around there. That is probably the worst thing you can do. I've seen it happen. And funny, the appraisals that have come in low in my career, you wouldn't believe how many times the realtor asked them if they were from that area. And I think it really insults an appraiser. They don't like it. And I'm not saying they got a low number because of that, but it certainly cannot help. So treat them with respect, but just let them kind of information. If you know anything special about the house, make sure you share it with them.
The details.
That's pretty much, I think, about appraisals.
Yep. And the appraisals have a separate spot when we actually touch on the offer itself, all the nooks and crannies to make your offer amazing. But when it comes to the comps, the big thing I want to stress is I think you should forecast based on kind of what you're seeing, right? Selection, demand is demand. Most cases you're seeing that there's probably no other actives. There's probably 2 or 3 pending and then like 10 closed, and you just have to forecast the best you can, knowing a few things. Number 1, use everything you've accumulated from that other agent. If he's told you about offers, anything and everything, find out what's the seller's motivation, right? Do you ask like, hey, what do the sellers need? Do they want a fast closing? Do they want a long closing? What would they prefer? And that helps. That actually got me my last offer accepted, actually.
Do they want a lease back?
Believe it or not,
they're going to be closing another home, but they want to close this one a little bit early. Things like that.
Exactly. You could cater your offer to the sellers. Give them exactly what they're looking for, given it's within reason. So use all there. If it's 4%, 5%, and there's nothing active, then that might be the best course of action based on what you've seen. But here's the catch. A lot of people are throwing out just insane offers thinking that, we'll be safe by the appraisal. Sellers know better, okay? Just because you write $100,000 over asking price, you better back it up because they know better. So you really need to find that within reason. And here's what I truly say after basing all the facts on the comps. Sellers, or buyers, in this market, I wish I could give you the golden offer that's going to get it accepted. All I can tell you is this much. We have here you need to put your best foot forward. There's no guarantee you're going to get a counter, but here's the catch. You want to offer as much as possible where you're not going to be like, we pay too much, really. Okay, but you don't want to offer any less if you don't get accepted, because you don't want to be like, oh crap, man, we could have gone up 5 more thousand, 10 more thousand. All I can say is in this market, you need to put your best foot forward. And it requires a little bit of talking, going back and forth, usually trying to really figure out where that comfort level is, because chances are it is going to be over asking price. It's just a matter of what's good for everybody that you think is in everybody's best interest. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, Keith.
Yeah, I want to touch on that comment, if I may, about trying to figure out, where the value is going to come in based off that appraisal. I've had listing agents call me and say, yeah, I don't think this is going to appraise. And does your borrower have more funds to pay if it doesn't? Comfortable conversation for me. If I haven't already talked to my borrower and said, hey, are you okay having that conversation with the listing agent, right? Because I'm not in a position to divulge information like that unless I've got permission from my client. Now, there may be other loan officers who might. Again, I don't do business that way. I'm very ethical. I protect my client's information without, it's that fine line between giving enough information to an agent to make them feel comfortable without giving them specific stuff that you're kind of giving them private information out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that might be one where, I'd rather not have this conversation until I talk to my client, see how they feel. It's not for me to make that decision. If they have a whole bunch of money, doesn't mean they're willing to bring it to the table either, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Me saying something doesn't necessarily mean anything anyway, if I haven't had that conversation.
Do you find that there's any value to getting
I'm sorry?
Do you find that there's any value for getting a pre-qual or pre-approval for that specific property every single time? Is that beneficial? Like, let's say you're going to do an escalation clause up to 350. Do you just give them a pre-qual for 350 and then you're good to go from there?
This is a great question, because let's talk a little bit about one of my guys. Look, I'm not an agent, but I know how this game is played, and it kind of bugs me a little. And maybe I'm just different, and because I haven't been an agent, I'm a little bit freer with this thought. But humor me here for a second. And I wish we could see people's pictures so I could see a show of hands, but how many here want the pre-approval for the purchase price you're going to offer, and not a penny more? Can we speak up at least? Say yay or nay.
Say that again?
How many agents ask for a pre-qual that's based on the offer price? That's what they want the pre-qual based on. But that's the most of the ones I do is based on, hey Keith, we're getting ready to put an offer in. It's $450,000. I need a pre-qual. Well, of course, I know what I was going to put down, so I do a pre-qual for that amount. But what if the borrower can qualify for a lot more? Well, the argument has been from agents, well, if they know they can qualify for more, they may not accept our offer. They'll counter back with a higher number. And everybody knows we play that game, right? Maybe the number on the pre-qual really is the most they can qualify for. That actually happens. I do something right on the edge that I certainly wouldn't want to have as my loan, but I don't get to make that decision for my borrowers. But in my mind, if someone's qualified to put an offer on a $450,000 home, but they put a pre-qual based on a $500,000 purchase, in this market, don't you think that's a strength? Knowing that the borrower, for a fact, isn't on a razor's edge. You don't know otherwise, right? You don't know if that's really the right number or not.
Yeah.
It's a thought, something to consider. Me personally, I'm like, hey, if you don't want to offer more than $475, who cares, right? So it's forced, So my point is, by showing the strength of the borrower, I think you have a better chance of getting your contract accepted. You may think, well, Keith, that'll help drive up that number. Well, I think the borrower has to have a number that they're willing to go to and say, that's it. I only give you this thing to show. I'm going to easily qualify for this amount. Does that make sense? I'm not an agent, but that's what I would do if I was.
That makes sense.
I've heard it a few times. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know.
Back.
So But anyway, my thoughts.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
Something like
It's a new perspective. I haven't thought about it that way. So
I do something like that when I have that conversation.
because I know with cash offers, I only want them to send me as much money as they need to in an account.
Of course.
You know, specifically, but when it comes to the pre-qual, because we're going to get to the actual offer next. So after you run the comps, you determine that magic number that your clients are willing to either go up to or specifically offer and hold to, whatever it might be. And now you're actually writing the offer. This is where the details and us being wonderful agents and knowing our contract. Okay. And if you're not an agent watching this, this is where finding a wonderful agent that knows the contract will make or break you and give you about 15 different edges that other people may not have thought about or addressed. Okay. So in this market, obviously there's only so much money that people are willing to spend or the home's going to appraise for. So eventually it's going to come down to more than money, right? All things being equal, 2 offers, $450,000. Which one do you go with? Right? And that's what we're going to get into now. So, number one, the first page of the offer. It's everything, right? You want the first page of that offer to be as beautiful and represent everything, okay? So, you have your purchase price, okay? But let's say you have an escalation clause, okay? That's on a different page. So, there's certain things that I'm going to preface, put in the email. Anything that they should know that's not on the first page, make sure you put it in bolds, asterisks, or something in that email you're sending, okay? Sometimes agents, when there's 30 offers, I hate to say it, there's no guarantee that you're going to go through your offer in every single page. I hate to say it, but you can't guarantee anything. You can't guarantee anything in this market. That's what this class is about. Tackle all your bases, all right? Tackle all your bases. Confused analogies, that's perfect. So right on the first page, you have your purchase price. Right underneath that, you have your deposit. Okay. Now, as far as the seller is concerned, is a deposit kind of correlated to a buyer's motivation or ability to purchase, as Keith would point out to you? You know, if they're able to put down more, does it not look better? Right? So as far as your deposit, if we're great agents, which raise your hand if you think you're a great agent, I hope we all do. Is there any real risk in your earnest money if you follow the contract correctly? Is there any risk with it? I'd hope a bunch of realtors are shaking their head. No, we don't risk earnest money. We know the contract. As long as you know your timelines and how to do it, it's not in jeopardy, right? So that's the key. If you know your outs and your clients work with you, you follow the timelines, how many outs will they have to get their earnest money back, right? You have your inspection period, you have your appraisal, you have your CC&Rs, potentially the final walkthrough. I mean, there's lots of things throughout to be able to protect your client and get their earnest money back, right? So as far as I'm concerned, that earnest deposit shows motivation and it's on the first page and it puts your client's best foot forward. So the more they're willing to put down, the better. If they have a $10,000 down payment, let's go and just throw that down. Boom. Okay. Because it's risk-free. Do you get my point? We utilize anything that's risk-free, quote unquote. Okay. You make sure you give your disclaimers about your clients. Like let them know that, hey, you better do exactly what I say when we say it, and there's no going back. Right. So obviously they need to know, but walk them through the contract, right? You talk about your 10-day inspection period. Hopefully you talk about the CC&Rs and how that's separate from the inspection period. You're going to talk about the appraisal. You know, you're going to talk about the condition of the home throughout and your final walkthrough. So hopefully you're going to go through all these things and be like, here's one, here's one, here's one, here's one, right? And it'll help them feel more comfortable. Does that make sense? Yeah, Keith.
Oh, Josh, you touched on a sore spot for me with agents.
Yeah.
That's not educating them on the stuff you just talked about. I have a client just called me yesterday. She has a contingent offer on selling a property back in Jersey, one of those co-ops, right? There's several other units on sale in the building, been on sale since January. I asked her why she's even writing a contract, quite frankly, because I'm pretty blunt with my clients like that. She called me yesterday because her agent told her, I guess she decided she probably wants to cancel the contract because she found there's even more for sale. Her agent told her to call me and tell me to issue a loan denial. I was like, excuse me? It's illegal for me to decline someone who's qualified, which was interesting. Yesterday morning before she called, we actually got the initial approval, contingent upon her selling one of these co-ops. But here's what really bothered me, and I told her this before, she needs to read the contract. In the contingency addendum, it talks about, and she was worried about losing her earnest money, right? And that's why he wanted me to deny the loan. He didn't have any idea what was in that contract. I think I hate to say this, but he wants to be a pilot and he's doing real estate part-time, I think. But I pulled up the contract, told her to pull it up, and I said, look, I'm not an agent. I can't give you advice on this, but I want to point you to the sections you need to read. You know, it's very clear. In fact, they actually came back with a counter and said, if it's not under contract by 6/7, which is in 4 days from now, she can cancel and get her earnest money back. She only has to wait 4 more days. Yeah. Guys, Josh is absolutely correct. If you really want your clients to not be nervous Nellies about their earnest money, you have to educate them on all the outs that they have. And it's important though too, that they understand those timing requirements for curing and stuff, okay? When it has to happen. Appraisal doesn't come in, I think you got 3 days to notify, right? Notify the seller, the selling agent, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
You're gonna put me on the spot. It's either 3 or 5. Yeah, I think it's.
Yeah, anyway, whatever it is, 3 or 5, they need to understand those things. It's gonna make them much more comfortable putting larger deposits down.
Yeah. And that's where knowing your contract backwards and forwards, making sure you're organized, being the professional agent, it really boils down to that. Okay, so you got your earnest money. Next is down payment. All right. Now, nobody can dictate how much your client can put down other than them. But obviously, Keith, how does, and this is, a lot of people don't know the fact on this one. So fact, how does down payment impact or protect an appraisal or not?
In your question. So what Josh is alluding to is, if I have somebody doing 10% down and the appraisal comes in low, what do we loan off of? We loan off purchase price or appraised value, whichever is less. So that borrower then has to think about, what are my options? They either have to bring more money to a down payment, or maybe what they do is they go, maybe I'll do a 95% loan, right? In other words, if they can qualify, they're going to have higher mortgage insurance and stuff, but we can adjust the loan amount, right, to cover some of that shortage. What if somebody's putting 30% down or 40% down, and he comes in 10% low, just using a nice round number, but they're putting 30% down. They might still be the 20% loan to value. What's the impact there? Nothing. Zip. No impact. They're just at a higher loan to value based on the appraisal, but doesn't impact the loan. So it really depends on the down payment they're doing, how much lower that appraisal comes in, on what the impact is if they can't put more money down. And that's a great conversation to have. I like to have that with my borrowers up front about what those impacts are. Here's what I tell my clients when they ask about an appraisal. What if it comes in low? I go, you're going to talk to your agent. You guys are going to have 3 options. Go back and counter at the appraised value, or they can counter back at an in-between number, or they can stick to their guns. And then you're going to have to decide which way you go. But what's interesting, and I'll go through the numbers with them on those different scenarios, to their loan or their cash to close.
So does a down payment literally impact an appraised value at all?
No.
There you go.
It has no bearing on the appraisal.
Exactly. Okay, so a lot of people think if they put down more, no, it's just that much more cushion they might have. If it doesn't, and they're willing. That's the catch. So that's my kind of thought process on this one. Is it's actually kind of different than what a lot of people are going to say. I don't necessarily think putting down more than you need to is a huge advantage, because it's really going to boil back down to the appraisal. So they need to ideally put some down. And we'll get into the loans here in a second, because that's where, actually, let's go ahead and jump into it, because right now you have people with FHA and VA, which unfortunately, yeah.
I want to, hold on a second. Sorry, Josh.
No.
You just said you don't think it matters putting more down than what
No, that's a caveat with an asterisk. I kind of switched thoughts because I was looking at my notes here. And
Because what I did want to say is this, right? If there is a lot down, then the seller knows, especially the listing agent, that the appraisal does come in low, that it shouldn't impact their ability to close, obviously, right?
Yes.
A larger down payment obviously is a big advantage, especially if the value is going to be higher than the appraised value.
And this is kind of where I'm coming at with a weird angle. So bear with me on this because I started off wrong, which is why I'm coming back. My bad. No. Okay. So down payment, normally I would say more is more, and you should always put your best foot forward because the sellers are going to be more likely to accept your offer. Right now with this market, with appraisals, having to worry about appraisal contingencies and escalation clauses and stuff, I'm more thinking put down what you need to, but make sure you're very strategic with how you're going to place your down payment with just different things. Which is why I'm coming back to the down payments, because the loan, okay? And here's what I've heard a lot over the last 2 months, okay? Cash is getting their offer accepted, done and done, and they're only accepting cash offers, okay? And that's true on certain circumstances. But then you have a conventional loan, which is very good. You can close very fast. You know what I mean? And it's pretty smooth process, not a lot of guidelines, blah, 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 right? We're just gonna go down the list. You have FHA, which as far as the seller is concerned, more risks. They might not appraise, these buyers might not be as strong. Then you have VA. Unfortunately, in this market with appraisals, people are scared to accept zero down for whatever reason, because they're afraid it won't appraise, there's less this. And in this case, I hate to say this, and I've actually heard this, okay? A VA loan has actually turned into almost a penalty when you're trying to place an offer today compared to a conventional loan or cash. Makes sense? Because they're not putting down, right? So what is your answer to that in the context of facts to give the sellers, right? Like, let's say I have a very qualified FHA guy. He's gonna put 3.5% down. Why should they accept my FHA loan as opposed to this conventional with 20% down? Make sense? No?
Oh yeah. So your point, if you ain't got money, forget it, right? But part of that though, for example, though, Josh, let's say for a veteran, right? Especially if you have a veteran who has a disability, is not paying any of the guarantee fee. There's no mortgage insurance. The rate's typically slightly better than the conventional. He may just use the 100% down because it's so cheap to borrow the money. But if you're going into a competitive environment, he does have money to put down. That's something I think should be communicated. I mean, it has to be talked with the borrower, the buyer. I have to have that conversation going, and so does the agent. Hey, look, if this doesn't appraise, do you have cash you're willing to put down on this loan? And
there you go. Yeah.
You need to communicate that to the listing agent and maybe give your VA loan a better opportunity than it might have otherwise.
Yeah.
People think the VA appraisals and stuff are more stringent. I don't really agree with that. I think my experience is they're coming in just like a regular appraiser would come in, as far as values and stuff. I don't see that as a penalty. I really don't. Nor do I see that in FHA. I mean, it's the same appraisers. FHA, VA, we have to all go through the same portal, but I don't see that as a penalty.
So,
in that way, market, I don't know.
Yeah, so if you're representing a VA buyer and you're presenting a VA offer to a seller or to a seller's agent, and I would stress that fact that, hey, he's zero down, but that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't. His loan is strong, and conveying that, because I hate to say this, but in today's market, people equate a lot to down payment, right? The more down payment, the safer it's going to be. It's more likely it's going to appraise, all these other things. And that's not factual, right? Keith, you're saying more properties are appraising than not. And that, I assume, includes FHA and VAs with zero down.
You want to hear something even more amazing?
Yeah.
I'm doing a loan right now for a house across the street and one over from me. 20% down. I got an appraisal waiver. And it's selling for 2,200 square feet. It was sold for, we actually got a good deal on it. It's only $535. Buyer knows the seller. But anyway, the point is, I actually have gotten some appraisal waivers, especially if they put more money down. And if the buyer's willing to not do the appraisal, because it's their option in that case, right? So that more down payment could actually preclude even doing an appraisal.
Okay, and let's say it's a VA and you put in a great offer. Could they not use their cash to now, instead of putting a down payment, it's more of a contingency in case it doesn't appraise, to be able to waive an appraisal up to a certain amount potentially?
Yes, absolutely. That was my point.
Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly. See, so being able to utilize your down payment strategically, okay, whatever cash on hand, use it to the best whatever you can, okay? So on the appearances, now we know like cash, great. Conventional, your FHA and VA, convey that down payment has nothing to do with their qualifications or how difficult this transaction is going to be. It's going to appraise the same as every other loan because it's the same market. So VA does not penalize sellers, and that's been the biggest bane of my existence. You just feel, because that's a benefit, man. I mean, I wish VA's got almost, and I hate to say this, but like almost preferential because of that fact. You know what I mean? Like they get a bad rap. So just go out of your way to make your FHA and VA as fair as possible in the seller's eyes, because they may not know. They may have that stereotypical thought, well, I have to pay stuff for the VA. Not really, no. You know, it's not nothing extraordinary. Does that make sense? Beat a dead horse there a little bit. Okay. So let's go next to number 8, which is inspections. All right. Now, yes, you have a natural 10-day inspection period. Okay. As I hope great agents, we have a couple inspectors available. How fast can your inspector truly make it out to the home? You know, hopefully 24, 48 hours. With any luck, you're going to get your report back within 24 hours after that. So let's say on average, you're 3 or 4 days out. Okay. So to do a 7-day appraisal, 7-day inspection period, is that not kind of a risky, risk-free-ish way of making your offer look a little better? Right? Because sellers, they want to know that you're committed. So the sooner you can show them you're committed, the better. And as long as you, the buyer's agent, can complete everything you need to in that time, great. You know? So obviously, if it's a fixer-upper, if you have real concerns about the home, you may need to work in that extra time. But if it's a standard home that all things being equal should be the same as always, you know, go for it. Make sense? So I've done 5-day inspections, 7-day inspections, whatever kind of suits the need of that time. And we've always been perfectly fine. Make sense? Sound good? Okay. So moving on, number 9. Okay, this is where we go back to appraisals. And this is where we actually get in the nitty-gritty of waiving them or doing like an escalation clause type thing, right? So, Keith, and this is, forgive me, it's kind of a interesting question to ask you. Are you seeing what proportion of people are actually waiving their appraisal totally, or actually putting in a window of we'll pay more up to this amount? Like, what are you seeing compared to just not even like just going with the standard offer? If it appraises, great. If not, we were going to cancel. You know, how many people are really doing that?
I don't have a specific number for you, but there's definitely a lot of people who are waiving either the appraisal contingency or doing an escalation clause. I think I see the appraisal contingency waived more than the escalation clause.
You are. Okay. All right. So that's good to know, everybody.
I think that's more important to the listing agent personally than the escalation clause.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to be more important in this market.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of going between two things. Sorry, when I said escalation,
They are kind of two different things.
appraisal up to a certain amount is what I meant. Sorry. Escalation clause next on my list. I was looking at it. Yeah. So waiving it to like a $10,000, waiving it to $5,000, you're seeing that they're waiving it entirely more than just a little bit.
I've seen both.
Okay.
And waiving up to a certain amount, and I've seen just totally waiving the appraisal.
Okay.
Can't give you specific percentages and stuff, but definitely, obviously, a lot more than I've seen in the past.
Okay. So kind of based on comps, but you're seeing a lot of those waivers. So to give our offer the best chance, as much as we hate to say it, it does behoove us, if at all possible, to waive an appraisal. And you're saying that most of them are waiving the entire appraisal if possible. That takes a lot of doing, man. Wow.
Yeah, because you're putting putting earnest money at risk, obviously, right? I mean,
Well, you're putting yourself on the hook for whatever it may come back, even if it's terrible, which is, I've tried not to waive them, and I haven't seen a huge impact. I will go get my clients to go up to a certain amount usually. Like I've done, for example, on my last one that was it was listed at like 439 and we went up to 460. Like he basically on the escalation and the appraisal, he was willing to go 10,000 either way, right? So we went, no, what was it? 20,000 over asking, but then he was willing to waive the appraisal by 10,000. Okay. So that's kind of what I'm seeing is waiving up to 10,000, 5,000, whatever possible. But I think the consensus is if you could waive the whole thing, that definitely is what a lot of people are doing. So that'll give you the best chance if your clients can do it. But if not, you're definitely seeing waivers up to whatever the clients are comfortable with on the majority.
You know, that kind of goes back to what's the value of a property? What someone's willing to pay for it.
Exactly.
Really, right?
Yeah.
Value.
But that's where I guess we're talking about what should your standard offer look like at this point in time. And at this point in time, a standard offer, unfortunately, I would say should have, if possible, some sort of appraisal waiver. Unfortunately. And hopefully it's not going to be used. That's why I like to put in, it's just up to this amount and you pray to God it's not going to be used. But I think it needs to be a standard part of an offer today. I mean, obviously, if there's no other offers, you're doing your homework. If there's no other offers, do your best, absolutely. But we're talking in a standard offer today, you're competing against multiple offers. So that's kind of specifically what we're talking about.
Well, and I think, going back to what you said before, coming upon the agent to really do their due diligence and look at the market and see what this thing most likely will appraise at.
Yeah.
Idea how much you're looking at potentially.
Yeah. So that's what the thing. You just got to forecast the best you can. Like, okay, last month it was this. We've seen this much appreciation. There's nothing on the market. So we got to go up 7, 8, 12%, whatever it might be. You know what I mean? And then you have to have confidence in that number, ideally, because you're not just pulling it out of your butt. And so you have to protect every angle. So I guess we can't make any decisions here for everybody, but I'm not necessarily comfortable waiving an appraisal. That's just a little more risk than I'm comfortable with as a buyer's agent. So I'm more comfortable putting a limit, just like the escalation, we'll beat out another offer because I've used those a lot today, right? We'll beat out any other offer by $1,000, by $1,500, up to X amount, over and over and over again. Are you seeing escalation clauses? Have you seen a lot of those by chance?
Not as many. I've seen it.
All right. I like them because it protects my client this way, but at the same time, you also think, well, why didn't they just come in with that higher offer? Well, some people just aren't comfortable with that. But what's so neat is literally my last one. It was literally that same one. It was I'm trying to remember the facts on that one. That I did the escalation. I think it was like the 431 or whatever. They didn't use the whole escalation. So immediately buyers are like, well, they're just going to jack it up to the peak. No, more often than not, I've seen that they haven't. Right? So an escalation clause, I think, is really good as well. Right? Keep it in your back pocket just in case, but what's the magic number? Do you beat out another offer by $500, $1,000? Do you need to go up by $5,000? That's kind of the case dependent part, right? What's it going to be to your particular sellers that you're dealing with, and the value of the home, obviously. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, I mean, again, I kind of have the same kind of a thought, though, be honest, that they're just going to come up with that number. Well, that's what other offers were. I mean, do they have to show you other offers that were higher, and that's why your escalation went to that?
They're supposed to present it. Yeah, they're supposed to back it up with whatever.
They're supposed to show you another offer that you were beating out?
They should show you at least part or like the first page or whatever, at least.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Something that shows that you really are truly beating a valid number. They're not just...
Exactly.
If that's the case, then yeah, I don't see the real problem with it. But again, it comes back to where, the key here, a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, numbers, you got to have a conversation with the loan officer before you do this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? because you have to know the borrower can qualify still.
That amount. Absolutely.
Should match that escalation clause. And I rarely have ever seen it back for a higher pre-qual. So I think good if you're going to escalate.
Perfect. Yeah. So appraisal waiving, kind of standard. Escalation clauses, or putting your absolute best foot forward, whichever one you kind of deem, but something kind of saying that you'll beat out another offer up to a certain amount is always beneficial. Okay. But this kind of goes also back to, and so just so we're on track, number 8 was the inspection shortening. Number 9 was appraisal waiving up to whatever you're comfortable with. Number 11 or 10 is the escalation clause. Okay. So keep it in your back pocket. It's very, very handy. But again, it kind of goes to, what do you think it's going to appraise for? What can they qualify for? You know, that type of stuff. So you kind of have to factor that into the whole picture, right? So that's number 10. Number 11, the COE. Again, coming back to the lender or your cash buyer. Your cash buyer can obviously close really fast. Your lender, on the other hand, you are at the will or whim of whatever is going on with that lender, which is why you want a lender you trust. You want a lender that doesn't have to go through all the rigmarole, i.e. avoiding a lot of larger banks, for example, and going with a great broker and lender. So like people like Keith, you said, how fast can you close the loan right now? What do you ask for?
Well, I mean, most contracts are written 30 days, right? That's easy. 3 weeks typically is not going to be a problem. I mean, if I know we need a 3-week close of escrow, I want to make sure the borrower has everything to me up front before we even submit the offer, preferably, or I know they're going to get it to me right away. And then the big thing about these, I'm glad you brought this back up, Josh. The thing about these shorter close of escrows is this, when it comes to the loan and the borrower, in my mind. When I get a contract in, I typically talk about when do we want to order the appraisal. And typically, we have a 30-day close. I like to wait until we have the initial the inspection done.
If possible.
My borrower is, are there any deal killers there? In other words, if the seller won't make the concession or the correction, will you cancel the deal? If that's the case, you may not want to order the appraisal yet, because once you order that appraisal, they're on the hook for the fee. Okay? If the appraisal is not completed and they cancel, there may be a partial fee, but there's not kind of fee up to the full amount. It's done.
Yeah.
If we're going to do a shorter close of escrow, we can't wait on those appraisals. We got to order them right away. So that's additional funds they have at risk besides, their inspection costs. They have that $500 appraisal, which is typically what most appraisals are. So that's a consideration. That's a conversation that has to be had with the borrower. That look, we don't have time to wait on the appraisal if we're going to close this thing quick. We got to get going right away. And then the other question is by agents is, hey, I need you to order appraisal right away. Well, here's when we can order the appraisal. Before we send out initial disclosures and they sign them and sign the intent to proceed, there's only one fee we can charge them, and that's for a credit report. And by the way, we don't charge them at all for that. Okay. It's built into our processing fee, so they only pay that if they actually close a loan. But that's the only thing legally we can charge them. So I cannot even order an appraisal until they give me the intent to proceed. So I have to get initial disclosures out, which I can do right away. I do it myself on almost all my loans. So I got a contract this morning. If I have everything, I'm sending initial disclosures today. They're signing them. We may be ordering the appraisal. So understand that sometimes we don't have a choice because we don't have disclosures out or they haven't signed them yet. Okay. These are conversations I have with the borrower. Makes sense.
What's the impact of a rural property right now?
What's that?
What's the impact of a somewhat like rurally or outskirty type property right now?
And what's your definition of that?
Well, you tell me. Like Buckeye, Surprise. I've heard
no impact. Those aren't outskirts. Those aren't rural.
New River.
If you're talking about doing a loan up in outside Prescott or up on the rim, I did loans in a row. Was it earlier this year or late last year up on the rim? One, I got an appraisal waiver, thank God. The other one was going to take a month to get the appraisal done. Somehow, when I asked my people to go back and try to do a rush, we ended up getting it done in a week and a half without a rush fee. I don't know how that happened. The agent was shocked. Because there was agents up there who knew there was a problem. So, but in the metropolitan area, which includes all of the valley, there is no difference in time.
Cool. All right.
Not a big deal.
Good to know. Perfect. So that's number 10. I'm going to try to wrap this up here really fast for everybody. Okay. So number, number 11. That was. Okay. So number 12. 12 kind of goes with number 13, but I have to be very specific. Okay. A lot of buyers don't understand what concessions are. And knowing about closing costs and things like that. Okay. You can't ask for concessions. You just can't, I mean, if there's no other offers, and let me make that caveat straight across the board. If you've done your homework and know you're the only offer, represent your buyer to the fullest extent. Okay. That's not even a question. But when we're dealing with multiple offer scenarios, that's the thing, concessions. People think that, well, I want to ask for home warranty. I need to ask them. I don't want to pay full price. I mean, there's so many things. So concessions are one thing, but number 13 is repairs. And that's one of the hardest things today, because if you know that there's 8 or 9 other offers, the sellers are in a very luxurious position to not have to do much. Okay. And so this is something that I just do with my clients. Okay. I anticipate the sellers aren't going to do a lot. And I kind of prepare my clients that, look, we're going to ask for whatever is needed and we're going to do our best, but you need to understand that the likelihood of them doing a lot is not going to be great. You still have to ask and hope for the best, but letting them know that, no concessions, beating out another offer. It's like, they know if you cancel on them, they're just going to get that there's 8 people behind us. So getting them on the plane of, if there's something serious, absolutely. But just know that there's no guarantees of your typical repairs being done. You know what I mean? So kind of number 12 and 13 go together. No concessions, given the situation, but then prepare for repairs. Any thoughts on that, Keith, or anything? Because, yeah.
Well, no, but you bring up a good point. I mean, it's common sense in a market that's competitive. The seller's less inclined to give concessions. The only thing I would say on that is this. If there are safety issues and things like that, they're going to have to fix those regardless. Okay. And that needs to be pointed out to the seller too, because it may not be to their advantage to cancel the deal if they're not willing to get some things fixed, because it's going to come up again anyway. And remember something else, we also do appraisals, right? And so if the appraiser notes a safety issue, if it's an FHA appraisal, the FHA appraisal stays, of course, not too many FHA loans being done, but it stays with the property for quite, 4 months. So, you have to look at these things and make an intelligent decision about which things you're going to ask for. And, I just want you to know, as loan officers, we have the ability to kind of back you up on these things. What I mean by that is this. When you tell your buyer something, sometimes they may think, well, he's just telling me that because he doesn't want to have to go back and it's blah, 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 it's a hassle, and he just wants to get the deal closed. So as a loan officer, I always try to support what I know they're going to hear from the agent. So what I tell my clients is this. When you do an inspection, remember what the inspector is going to do. He's look for everything. What you should focus on is safety issues and big ticket items. So when I bought my house, it said, oh, the gas line going to the air handler doesn't have a grommet in there to current code. Okay, well, it was built, the code was built. I'm not going to ask them to fix that. So I share that story with my clients to say, look, be reasonable, right? In this market, though, you're right. You got to really be reasonable. You're going to get nothing. One other comment on that, again, if you're going to be getting concessions, talk to the loan officer and ask him how much room you have for closing costs and prepays, right? Because we don't talk about corrections because then they have to be done before the loan's closed. So it's always a seller concession towards closing costs and prepays. And you don't know how much there is. What if they did an interest rate where they're getting back closing costs, to help them out. So always have that conversation, loan officer, before you finalize those numbers. It's helpful, really helpful.
Absolutely. One thing I forgot to bring up with the close of escrow that I mentioned with you earlier in talking was the difference between cash and a loan. Ultimately, in Keith's case, for example, is cash typically closes in a week to 2 weeks, and his loan is 3 weeks. So the conversation you're really having with that seller or the seller's agent is, what's it worth your buyer or your seller for 2 more weeks to work with my client? What's it really worth, right? And they might have to pay a little bit extra, $1,500, $2,000, whatever it is for that couple weeks. But that's all it really boils down to is time. And what's that time worth to your client, or to their client, all things being equal, right? And that puts it in much greater perspective, because cash isn't always necessarily king. It's what am I going to end up net in my pocket when I walk away from the sale is what really a lot of sellers just really ultimately care about. And if it's a 2-week difference, so be it, or if a person needs a 60-day close, that's more beneficial to them. So cash doesn't mean anything to them. You know what I mean? So really kind of break it down in that conversation pattern. All right, wrapping up here. We got number 14 and 15 go together, and it goes together with the email you're presenting. How many of you have letters from your clients about how amazing they are, how they're going to love this home, be there forever, it's going to be their retirement home, the kids, the dogs, that's number 14. And then number 15, the picture of the family holding the pet in front of the house, etc. Literally that last one, I pulled out all the stops because this client, just so you know, I keep referencing him because I've known him for 10 years. I helped his ex-girlfriend 10 years ago buy a home, and he was gonna buy a home for me for the last 10 years. Okay. And I've shown him probably 7 or 8 homes every year for 10 years. And so when he finally said, this is the one, you best believe I pulled out all the stops to make sure we did what was needed. And we actually didn't have the highest offer, but I put our best foot forward. He used the escalation, but they didn't go all the way up to the top. But this property, and Tony and I actually had the conversation about this because this guy works on cars, and it had a wonderful garage, a wonderful lot, RV parking on both sides. So he was able, it was perfect. So of course, the day we saw that home, he was with his dad, and they both had their classic cars right there. So I literally went across the street and I took a picture of him and his dad standing by the classic cars in front of the house, boom, and sent that with the offer. And I said, this is their home. They found it and submitted the whole, letter and the whole shebang. But when I referred to him later, oh, see, I don't know about that one. That's a good conversation, actually. Somebody said that they shouldn't use photos. I haven't had any bad parts because I've actually taken a photo in front of the house is what I've used, literally with my clients, just right then and there. Interesting.
What's interesting is a comment that Vicki made about seller's agent was even amazed that seller accepted our contingent offer before others based on. I've seen it happen before, and I've seen the listing agents be surprised. Sometimes people own homes, a lot of times they take a lot of pride in it, and they want to sell to somebody that they feel is going to really love it and take care of it. Maybe they're going to raise their kids there like they raised their kids there. So don't ever underestimate those letters. I totally agree, Vicki. It's amazing what sometimes a seller will do that the agent never thought they would.
Yeah, and I actually texted the picture to the listing agent literally right then and there. Like it didn't even accompany in that email. I sent the picture.
Could I say a comment?
Yeah, of course.
One of the things I've used is if the house is occupied and people are still living there, because just like you said before, you can't guarantee that with the 100 offers that they're going to show everything to the sellers. So that letter that we write, I put it in the email, but we also have a hard copy signed by the buyers, and we leave it in the kitchen counter in a place the seller will see it.
Nice.
Yep, and you want as much as possible as far as the pertinent stuff there in that email right in front of them, so that way they don't have to click on anything, open anything, they can just see it.
Right, and even through the inspection period, once under contract, when we did like the inspection, we left a thank you letter for, the opportunity to be able to purchase their home. Just got to keep them happy all the way along, because you never know.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's perfect. And
but you know what's neat about that too? You might come across an agent at another deal later, and they're going to remember you because of the way you handled that transaction. And that can get your deal accepted right there.
That's priceless for your future and future.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm a loan officer, but I know this stuff.
Rooted.
Yeah, the subject line too. You know, if it's an over asking price offer, say it. You know, don't just say offer for the property or just whatever. Say over asking price. You know, star over asking price offer, over asking price. You know, whatever it might be, like a clean, amazing offer included. You know, something like to get their attention. Just letting them know even from the subject line that this is better than normal. You know, those details. Perfect, Keith. We did it. We're 3 minutes early, technically.
I'd like you to do one thing for me. Just let me share my screen again so I can give everybody my contact info.
Perfect.
So if anybody has any questions for me, here's my contact info. Take a screenshot if you will. And, you know, I do not have banker's hours, as Josh mentioned. And, you know, I mean, if your borrower has a lender, but you want a second opinion about something, always welcome to call me. I will give you whatever time you need to make, even just make you comfortable with what you're being told by someone else or your client.
Nice.
I've been doing this a long time and I'm old. It's taking care of people, quite frankly.
Yeah, Keith's the type of guy that when I first met him 12 years ago, we met at a
Oh no, you're gonna tell that story?
Yes.
Oh shit.
And he was referred to me by my old broker when I first got, in the business. And he's like, he's a really good guy. So Keith, we met at the Starbucks and I was there with my then 4-year-old daughter. And Keith accidentally spilled his drink on my daughter. And you can't tell how apologetic and sorry he was. To this day, every time he sees her, he apologizes. 12 years later, he still apologizes for that day.
I was mortified. It was coffee. Thank God we'd been there for a while. It was cooled down. Oh, yeah. It was the most embarrassing thing.
Perfect. And I'm Josh Ezel. I own Breakthrough Real Estate and Property Management. We are a full service brokerage. We're looking to explode this year. We have commission plans at the wazoo. We provide leads, support, you name it. I have a great brokerage. I really have worked hard to create it. And then we have our property management, which we take great care of your referrals. We're non-competition for property management. And we actually have a drip campaign that keeps you, the referring agent, in front of both the owner and the tenants for future possibilities on that level. So we're great. We really appreciate those referrals. And then last but not least, I have my handyman company, which we started from getting burned so much in property management. And so we have a great niche. Right now we have 4 wonderful handymen actually that we can handle your Binzer request. We understand the Binzer process, your closing. So if there is anything you need, we can absolutely work with that for you personally, your anybody. So those are my 3 companies. And if there's anything I could do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I don't have any slides. I apologize. So my phone number is 602-821-7460.
Why don't you put it in the chat log?
Yep, I'll put that in right now.
So you can see it.
Perfect. And here's my email. And if you want, check us out at replum.com.
If you could take a picture of your business card or screenshot, you can actually put it in there also.
Yeah. Well, we have everybody that attended here on a list, so you'll definitely be hearing from my office.
Yeah.
We're not going to spam you or anything like that, but yeah, we'll say thank you. All right. Thank you very much for your time, Keith. Thank you, everybody. This was a lesson coming back to the meetings and everything like that. You guys are awesome. Have a wonderful day.